Before dawn on September 1, 1939, the world held its breath, though it didn't yet know why. Over the Polish countryside, faint moonlight shimmered across dew-covered fields. People were still asleep, blissfully unaware that within minutes, their country would become the first battlefield of the most catastrophic war in human history. Across the border, inside German military bases, the air was thick with anticipation. Tank engines rumbled to life, a low growl that promised destruction. Luftwaffe pilots sat in their cockpits, hands on the controls, waiting for just one thing: Adolf Hitler's command. That day, September 1, 1939, would go down in history as the official start of World War II in Europe. But this fire didn't ignite overnight. It had been smoldering for years. Since coming to power in 1933, Hitler was obsessed with a single idea: Germany could only rise again by overturning the Treaty of Versailles and expanding eastward for what he called Lebensraum, or living space, and Poland, right on the border, rich in resources and once part of German territory, was his first target. Hitler's preparation for war was a methodical march toward conflict. He began a massive rearmament program, openly defying the Versailles Treaty's restrictions. In 1938, he annexed Austria in the Anschluss, then moved on to seize the Sudetenland and dismantle Czechoslovakia. To secure his eastern flank and avoid a two-front war, he signed the shocking Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with the Soviet Union, a non-aggression agreement that secretly planned to carve up Poland between them. All the while, his propaganda machine, led by Joseph Goebbels, launched a vicious campaign against Poland, painting it as an aggressor threatening peaceful Germany. But for his grand invasion, Hitler needed a final, definitive excuse. That excuse was delivered the night before by Heinrich Himmler through a staged, false flag operation known as the Gleiwitz Incident. When the fake shots at the Gleiwitz radio station echoed through the night, Hitler knew his moment had arrived. Let's rewind to Berlin, 10 p.m., August 31st, inside his dim office in the Reich Chancellery, lit only by the yellow glow of desk lamps. Hitler stood over a massive map of Europe. He was silent, his face a mask of cold calculation. Around him were the top officers of the Wehrmacht's Supreme Command, Wilhelm Keitel, Alfred Jodl, and Walter von Brauchitsch, along with representatives of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The tension was suffocating. Finally, Hitler broke the silence. His voice was low but firm. The operation begins at 4:45 a.m. That single sentence sealed the fate of the world, pulling humanity into a vortex of destruction. The generals stood rigid, their faces pale. No one dared object. They knew that from this moment on, there was absolutely no turning back. 4:45 a.m., September 1st, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein, which had been anchored in the harbor of Danzig under the guise of a friendly visit, suddenly rotated its powerful guns. 1 minute later, at 4:46 a.m., the first shell of World War II screamed through the air. It slammed into the Polish garrison at Westerplatte, a small outpost on the coast. A thunderous explosion ripped open the dawn. In that exact moment, history changed forever. Seconds later, hundreds of panzer tanks rolled across the Polish border from the west and south. The ground trembled. In the skies above, waves of Luftwaffe squadrons roared toward major cities like Warsaw, Krakow, and Poznan. The Luftwaffe played a decisive role in these opening hours. By 5 a.m., squadrons of Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers were plunging toward bridges, rail stations, and airfields. Their infamous sirens, nicknamed the Jericho trumpets, screamed like the wails of death, spreading terror and chaos wherever they struck. Within just a few hours, the Polish Air Force was almost entirely wiped out, destroyed on the ground before its planes could even take off. Without air power, Poland was effectively blind, unable to see or counter the German advance. Hitler's plan relied on a terrifying new strategy: blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This was nothing like the slow, attritional trench warfare of World War I. Blitzkrieg was about speed, shock, and overwhelming force. Panzer divisions would punch through enemy lines, followed closely by motorized infantry to exploit the breakthrough. The Luftwaffe would strike from above, acting as flying artillery. And all these elements were coordinated with lightning-fast radio communication. Army Group South, under General Gerd von Rundstedt, and Army Group North, under General Vetter von Bock, advanced with one clear objective: to slice Poland in half and encircle its armies before they could fully mobilize. Within the first 24 hours, the Polish border defenses were shattered. Early that morning, as the citizens of Warsaw struggled to understand what was happening, their city began to shake from the first explosions. Luftwaffe bombs slammed into train stations, shipyards, and even residential districts. A Polish civilian later wrote in his diary, "I woke to the sound of shattering glass. The entire sky was red, not from the sunrise, but from bombs." At 9 a.m. on September 1st, Hitler appeared before the Reichstag to deliver a speech he had prepared well in advance. Speaking in a deep, dramatic tone, he declared, "At 5:45 this morning, we were forced to respond. Polish troops fired the first shots on German soil. This was one of the most blatant and cynical lies of the 20th century." He himself had ordered the attack at 4:45 a.m., a full hour earlier. But Goebbels' propaganda machine relentlessly spread the lie across Germany, masterfully twisting an unprovoked invasion into an act of self-defense. Millions of Germans believed it. The world, however, could only respond with shock and outrage. As German forces pushed deeper into Poland, the news electrified Europe. Britain and France, Poland's allies, issued a stern ultimatum: Hitler must withdraw his troops immediately, or face war. He ignored it. He was gambling, believing that Britain and France would appease him again, just as they had done over Czechoslovakia a year earlier. He thought they would back down, but this time was different. This time, the line had been crossed. On September 3, 1939, Britain and France formally declared war on Germany. Within 48 hours, a conflict between Germany and Poland had exploded into a war engulfing all of Europe. Back on the battlefield, despite being caught off guard and technologically outmatched, the Polish forces fought back with incredible ferocity. Heroic stands were made at places like Westerplatte, Mława, the Bzura River, and the Hel Peninsula. At Westerplatte, a tiny garrison of just 180 Polish soldiers held off more than 3,000 German attackers for 7 long days, becoming an enduring national symbol of bravery against impossible odds. But courage alone could not stop the German war machine. The imbalance in equipment, mobility, communication, and especially air support was simply overwhelming. Hitler was confident. He had planned to defeat Poland in under 3 weeks, a victory so swift it would shock the world and intimidate the rest of Europe into submission. By the evening of September 1st, after hearing reports that several Polish defensive lines had collapsed, Hitler reportedly smiled with triumph. "This time," he said, "no one can stop me." In that moment, the dictator believed that fate was on his side. But what he had truly done was unleash 6 years of unimaginable death and destruction, a global catastrophe that would claim nearly 80 million lives. From a lie spoken in the morning, to rivers of blood by the afternoon, the world had ignited in just a few hours. September 1st, 1939, was not merely the day Hitler attacked Poland. It marked the beginning of 6 years of brutal war, the deaths of 80 million people, the eventual collapse of Nazi Germany, and the birth of a completely new world order. All of it, sparked by a dictator's command and the lie he used to justify it. September 1st, 1939, the day the world caught fire. A day that humanity must never, ever forget. Thanks for watching. If you found this history compelling, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our next deep dive into the past.